So, and the audio wasn't enabled. See, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry about that, if there was no audio. This app is starting to become really temperamental sometimes. Not saving the settings that I previously used, where before it would always. I wonder if there was an update or something to it. The problem with it is that I've been doing these lawn mowing live streams from last year already. So I'm already kind of used to like the workflow of what I need to do. So if it's changed, it's kind of hard to remember. And now it's like, oh no, I gotta check everything. I gotta check every setting before starting, which would be a pain because that would take up a lot of time. You want it to just work. Lots of trimming on this one. Stones. This little area over here is another trouble spot when it comes to rain. So hopefully it's firm enough. Got a navigator. Wait. Signal's all green looking. Can't see what the number is, but should be okay for the stream right now. They kind of show you your like upload speed in the top corner of the app, but it's very tiny little font, and with the phone being close to where my eyes are, it's hard to focus on it. But they change colors as well, so the speed will be green is okay, then yellow is kind of like slowing down, and then red is like obviously not working well, so you kind of know if the area you're in is, yeah, it's going to be not very good. It's gonna be choppy. Let me know if you have any questions. You can hear the audio right now. And if, where you're from, where you're watching. Alright, I'm going to clean up those stones a little bit more since I've got some extra time. Get all the creepers out of here. Currently on the trimmer, I've got some Oregon gator line that I put on temporarily. I had a leftover couple of pieces. I had run out of the Milwaukee line that came with the trimmer, and I was surprised with how long the Milwaukee line lasted. So I got a full roll of it, one of the large rolls of the Milwaukee line, so I can test it long term. So I'm just using the last bit of the gator line that I had. This roll I had run out of, I was using the black diamond previously, and I ran out, and then just trying to figure out what I was going to replace it with. And I had found a old roll of like gator line, but it was like probably 10 years old. So I think I was using the gator line, then switched to the black diamond when I was in that UAG program. So that would have been like 2017 that gator line was from. So it was pretty brittle. At least the first piece that I used of it. And so old. It's pretty common here too with these type of do-it-yourself or stone pathways for them to sink so much with all the rain that we get. The ground stays soft for a long time. People walking on them, and then they will. Gradually start to disappear lower and lower into the ground. I guess the good thing is that there's no worry about hitting them with your mower. And then they sink down low. But they really need to be lifted. It has to become even a tripping hazard when you're like that. Especially with if you have like elderly people using them or anything like that, they tend to not be able to lift their feet high enough like maybe they once could. So as those stones sink, it becomes an issue. All right, let's grab the navigator and try it out. Hopefully we can get this bottom half of the lawn done without causing any damage, though it looks like somebody's driven on the lawn there. Right on top of one of the stones, just pushed it right in. It's always a pain. It's happened so many times on this property. They once had a big, like a 5-ton type moving truck that came into the cul-de-sac and then couldn't turn around and pulled right over the lawn there. Went like right down to the axle. It was crazy. Just completely destroyed the lawn. So hopefully we'll be okay. And not be too... But I start at the bottom here anyways, so that should help a little bit with weight. Obviously, as this hopper gets full, the machine gets heavier and heavier. But the machine's already pretty heavy on its own. And then you put me on it. It becomes very tricky here in the Pacific Northwest. Kind of figuring out what you can use, what mowers. Sometimes it just makes, while I would love, obviously, as I'm getting older, I would love to do all my lawns as like sit-down mowers or stand-on mowers and stuff like that. But it's just not feasible throughout the year. So you end up doing like 90% push mowing, like I have been for the last 20 years. And it's really starting to catch up with me now as I turned 50 years old this year. The push mowing is really starting to change things. So that's another benefit to the battery stuff. It's just those battery mowers are so much lighter. My brother-in-law, like I said, he switched to using the Milwaukee battery mower for the first time. He went out. He was waiting for me to do a review on one, but I haven't gotten mine yet. So he just went out and bought one because Home Depot here had a promotion on them. It's going to be a little bit noisier. So yeah, the Home Depot had a promotion where if you bought a Milwaukee mower, you got like a free quick lock system. That ended at the end of May. So whenever the end of May is, today, tomorrow. So he's been using it for a couple weeks now, and I'm surprised that he really likes it. The first time he's ever used the battery mower.
So far, so good. Bit of a sideways slope here. Currently, I'm cutting at 2.5 inches. I'll put you guys on the tripod. My best to be careful here. Sorry if I'm out of view for a second. This lawn is really bumpy. It's a good one to show off the articulating deck of the Navigator. You watch the deck here through all these bumps. You'll see how it follows the contours separately from the machine. I think we'll be okay with ground conditions. I put it off long enough to allow enough drainage to support the machine, I think. Although another little trouble area is around the tree right there to the left of the camera view. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the chat. I'll check to see if there's anything. When I got the camera back, go to the backyard. It might be out of view, I'm not sure. Just got a little section to go. It's hard to tell whether the camera can see what I'm doing. Yeah, it's okay around the trees, that's good. It's always nerve-wracking, especially, like I said, as the machine fills up. It's obviously getting heavier and heavier.
Yep, accidentally turned off the key. All right. Put this back on the wide view. Then we will turn machine back on, brakes on. Went to reach for the forward speed control and accidentally knocked the key to the off position. A little bit of a divot there, so I'm going to go straight at this little hill. There we go. Sometimes when you go up the hill and you kind of like curve as you're going up the hill, you feel like the back wheel is starting to slip. Just going to continue along here and then put the camera back on the tripod in a little bit. A lot of grass here today. It's grown a lot.
I'm going to try and put you guys on a tripod.
Maybe up here, where I usually put it. I'm doing streams from here. See if it holds today. That'll work.
Just let me know if you guys have any questions. Also, let me know where you're watching from. That would be kind of cool. I might go out of view for a little bit. I go around this corner. I'll be back quick though. Just doing the perimeter. Very lumpy lawn, this one. Just doing a bigger berth at the bottom here. So I got more room to turn around. I go up and down. Just because it's on a bit of a slope and there's almost like a ditch, I would call it. So I want to give myself plenty of room to turn the navigator when I'm at the bottom here. This is one of those lawns that's really fun to aerate. With the hill and the slopes and the bumps. Just enjoying the mow today. like I said, just catching up on a lot of these ponds. With the rain we had yesterday morning, I only was able to get started around 1 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday. Things finally, I wouldn't even say dried out, things just stopped raining enough. So I did half my room yesterday, and I think I'll just do the other half today. No alarm yet on the hopper. Just turn the angle of the camera. If I can reach it without getting off my seat, should be able to. Hopefully you guys can see. This area over here is a trouble spot as well. It's too wet. So you either do multiple maneuvers to turn, but even that can sometimes tear up. So sometimes I'll just do the big ovals, like a hockey zamboni here in the ice. So that's big, wide, sweeping turns. Until you get to the middle, of course, then you gotta turn around, but you guys get the idea. Just to minimize the damage. Lots of little factors when it's wet, drainage. There's also the hills and slopes. Some of them are very subtle, but I tell you, they're enough to cause havoc with the heavy machine trying to turn. All right. Well, that was good. It didn't sink anywhere. So now I pull forward and then backwards to reverse my tail wheel. Brakes on. You get my bins forward. Probably need 2 today. Ooh, that one smells right. That second bin. Let me see the camera view. What were you guys actually seeing? Oh yeah, you could see what I was doing. You could see. Let's leave this open. Let's see my. We'll go back here so you can see the bin as well. How full did we get it? Oh, that one's full. Yeah. That one's full. Ooh. Oh yeah.
This one's usually about half to 3/4 full, and that first one is full. I don't have the deflector in here. They give you a little deflector to kind of evenly distribute the clippings into these two bins. But I took it out. It installs on the screen. On the top there, that air screen. So if you want to clean the screen, then you gotta using this one's like an odd shaped bin for that discharge chute to fit through. So I've taken the fuller size bin there, putting it on the ground now to dump the rest of the clippings into. That's why I do the reverse when I park, to get that tail wheel to go underneath the machine so I can get that bin closer. Yeah, so if I leave the deflector, the deflector comes with the bins, the accessory bins. So you got that big opening in the chute there. Now, unlike a walker will have a smaller chute, but it articulates, it moves side to side to fill out evenly. This one they give you a fuller, bigger chute, which is great because it never clogs. But if you want to use the bins, they also give you a metal kind of deflector that kind of goes through the top of the screen here with just a couple of wing nuts, and then you kind of put it to the angle so that it deflects some of the clippings to this side. But if you want to clean the screen, then you always got to constantly take that off. To clean the screen, you just push up on it here, and then it slides out. And actually, I don't have my scraper with me, but I would just give this a good, take my scraper and just scrape it, and then it all kind of comes off. Hit it a couple times. So this is the screen that basically, as your clippings are going into that box there, it allows the air that the blower is generating to come out these vents here. You see on the back of the door. But it prevents the grass, obviously, from blowing out. Same reason on a regular, smaller lawnmower, you have a fabric bag, right, to let the air flow through it. So then what they do is, with this mower versus the walker will have, the screen will have 1/4-inch holes in it, and then they have an optional 1-inch hole screen with much bigger holes that you use if it's really wet conditions, where you can leaf cleanups, things like that, to prevent clogging. Because if the screen clogs up and the airflow can't go, then the machine will clog. So what the Navigator does is they give you this screen here with these smaller honeycomb pattern, but they give you this section here in the front that is removable, this 3-inch section. You can see the wing nuts there. So if you're in really, really tough conditions, if you find yourself clogging the machine, you can remove this front section so that it leaves an open gap at the front. So you still get the majority preventing, because obviously when you stick this in there, the discharge chute is past this section. So majority of the air is going through there, but it allows that circulating air to flow out. And then that should prevent clogs. Just gotta clean that rail there so I can see what I'm doing. So I normally wouldn't need to clean this right now because it's dry. It's not a big deal. And then there's a little slotted channel here that when you start putting that in there, there's a couple of metal slides on either end. You just kind of set that on top, position it, so that it slides in that channel, and then lock it in place. A little bit of grass on the ground. I'm not too worried about completely cleaning the machine, because my next job is one I'll be using this machine on again. Usually on the last job of the day, if I'm using this, is when I'll pull out that screen. Just give it a good little cleaning so it's ready for the next time. If you leave it for too long, then even the dry grass can build up on it and could potentially have issues. Which it has been, so I'm going to put them back here. I'm going to take them to the front and I blow. See if there's any questions. Go in the shade here. Got something on the screen. Tommy Hanlon. Hello from Dublin, 9:35, bright gray, Friday evening. Hello, welcome. Appreciate you tuning in to the lawn mowing live stream. I'll put you guys back on the POV style around my neck. Put my little folding tripod doohickey. Pretty cool little thing, very lightweight. The actual rod itself is metal, and the little fold-out legs are easy to use. But it's nice because it folds up. You can do landscape or regular with it. It has a GoPro adapter if you don't want to use your phone, and has a little removable Bluetooth remote if you want to activate your recording or photos or whatever. It's kind of handy to have. I have it set up, but I don't ever use the Bluetooth remote part of it. Kind of handy. I found it to work really well, and then I'm able to just kind of put it in my little pocket there on the side to hold it because it's so lightweight. Now the downside of it is it's so lightweight that you put like a big phone like I'm using, a Pro Max iPhone, and catches some wind, it's gonna knock it over. So I always try to make sure it's not always possible because a lot of these lawns are bumpy, but try to put it on the grass so that if it does fall, it's not going to damage the phone. But sometimes it's not possible, so you're always kind of crushing your fingers. I don't know if I should do maybe. Let's update the photo here. Let me go over here. Is this going to work? And then actually the sun's behind me, so it's not going to work as well. What if I go down to the bottom of the hill? Or maybe one in the front yard. Yeah, let's do one in the front yard. Maybe like that. And I'm just going to hold the phone to get a kind of like a still shot. Yeah, that might work. That, again, the sun is not quite in the best spot there. What if I go on this angle? Yeah, that might work too. Gives me a couple of options for some thumbnails. Also could do an action one, I guess. Pull from the video. I tried to set up the thumbnail images in advance, so you'll notice the thumbnail that was used for this one. It's this property. I try to show at least the machine I'm using for the property if I'm doing a live stream, but also try to show a picture of the property too. Not always possible. So you'll notice that the picture that was used here was from obviously a different time because the lawn is all dry in the back there. It's from the summer one year. So it was just what I had available at the time when I looked through my camera rolls. The first photo I found of this property, so I went with it. But just trying to line up the machine here. See those two worn out spots on the deck, front of the deck? Just kind of centering those with the middle of the ramps. So I know I'm kind of in the middle of the trailer. And then I'm kind of pressing against the back a little bit, holding the controls so I'm tight against that back wall. So hopefully the mower's kind of centered. Amazing here, though some of these lawns are already starting to dry out. And it's still May. Had some dry weeks, some rain here and there, but I think it's going to be like a longer drought type year once we get into summer. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those rough mowing years, mowing summers. Hopefully it's not like that one weird year we had, was it 2 or 3 years ago during the pandemic, where we had like a 4-month drought. That was crazy. That I remember being in October, like end of the year, and mowing some lawns, and it looked like it was July, like just everything brown, like hay. And it's like you're wrapping up the season with like nothing cutting. That was probably the worst year that we've ever had. This mower, I always have to fold up the deck to get it to fit in the trailer. If it wasn't for the fact that this deck articulates, I would not be able to use this machine. It's one of the things that first attracted me to the walkers when I first bought the original walker I had, was the fact that these decks fold up. Not only does it allow it to fit in my small trailer, but it also allows me to potentially remove wet grass clogging the deck so much easier on site, because you can fold that deck up anytime. You know, you can clean out any clogs and stuff. Easy to remove blades, sharpen. Telling you, if you ever have to bag clippings, walkers, or the navigator are tough to beat. No other comments. Hard to see in the sun, the glare on the screen. can move those bins a little easier. Love this Milwaukee blower. This dual battery one. Packs a punch. She needs to go around the other side to close the gate. Really lumpy, bumpy. You can see it just all starting to dry out already, even with the rain we had yesterday. But it's been lacking rain. Most people don't water their lawns because it's normally raining so much. Like this one has no irrigation system or anything. And then in the last few years, they've started making, they've had watering restrictions for many years, but they've been getting more and more strict. So, for example, you used to be able to water your lawn twice a week. At 2 separate times of the day. Once in the evening and in the morning. And now that has gone down to 1 day a week based on your address, and only from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. either on Saturday or Sunday, depending on your address, whether you have a odd numbered address or even. So because of that kind of restriction, 5 a.m. and all that stuff, you know, if you have a large property like this and you don't have irrigation, there's no way you're getting up out of bed to start, sufficiently watering the lawn and moving the sprinkler around to different areas. Get like a full-time job on your weekend. Yeah, so it's one of those things, as is watering restrictions have become more strict, it actually becomes much more necessary to have an irrigation system that you can program. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to keep up, especially in the summer. If you miss one watering, you got to wait a whole week to be able to water the lawn again. And if it's scorching, that's enough to really make the lawn suffer. All right, done that one. Let's see where we're at here. Glasses off. Tommy says that's a nice looking healthy lawn. It's actually not very nice. It does look nice at certain times of the year, but right now you can see it's starting to dry out, and it's got lots of thatch Um, it's very, very uneven and lumpy. Um, the owners were telling me that when they were much younger, they used to, you know, really take good care of it in terms of they're saying like how many times they've had to bring in soil to level out the front lawn over the years that they've lived here, and it just always goes back to just with the amount of rain and stuff and poor drainage, it just gets just like that front. Just it's awesome for showing off the Navigator and how it kind of floats over those areas and doesn't really scalp or anything like that. Um, but yeah, it's just super lumpy. But it does look good at certain times. Certain times I've brought in times of the year where it's like, everything's working well in terms of um, the amount of rain we're getting and the growth and they don't always fertilize. Some years they're like, yes, fertilize. Other years they're like, no, just skip it this time and stuff. They're on like fixed income, being retired and stuff. But sometimes it hits really nice, and then I'll bring out the drone and stuff to try to get some overhead shots and stuff um, with it. And other times I've brought in the drone out, and it's like, it just looks terrible from the top. It's just so dry or whatever that I don't ever end up using the footage on it. Just one of those things. So I think that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thanks for joining in and watching the live stream. Really appreciate it. And we'll have a good weekend, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Tommy, do you detach and treat lawns? Hold on, I think my 1 second here. I think I accidentally put the key in the ignition and it switched to the Bluetooth on the truck. Should be back to the microphone. Do you cut or do you dethatch and treat lawns too? So I do dethatch sometimes. I don't do honestly as many as I used to. I used to do almost every client. I would dethatch and aerate, do like the top dressing and all that stuff. Did it for years. Um, don't do as much of it anymore, and I don't do it for anybody who's not a regular client, especially. So there's a few that do it from time to time now, like I'll call it like a lawn reno, but mostly it's all cutting, doing hedge trimming, stuff like that. I do fertilize, lime, moss control. The only thing I don't do is anything that's like a herbicide or weed killer or things like that. Um, I don't touch any of those chemicals. Again, used to. Actually, was when I first started in lawn care, kind of doing it on the side. I would put weed killer and stuff down. When I started like being legit and actually doing everything properly and all that stuff, I actually went and got my license to spray herbicides and stuff like that. And it was actually during that course um, of learning in that course how actually nasty and dangerous those weed chemicals are that I have never touched a weed chemical since that course. And when I passed that course, they gave me my certificate to spray weeds, and it was like I can't remember now, but it was like $400 or $500 to do that course to get your license. And I went through it, and they said, "Congratulations, you passed." And I said, "That's great, but from what I learned in this class, I'm never touching that stuff again." And he said, "You're not the first person to say that." And I have never touched weed chemicals since. Just made the connection to when I was just a homeowner before doing lawn care. One day in particular where I got really sick, and my wife had to call an ambulance, and I literally thought I was going to die. I was being wheeled out on a stretcher at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I remember looking up and seeing the windows of my kids who were 5 and 7 or something at the time, um, seeing their bedroom windows in the middle of the night, and I was like thinking to myself, I'm never gonna see them again. I thought I was having a heart attack or something, and it was only they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and didn't make the connection um, until I took that course. That was the day that I was spraying weeds in my garden with like some whatever chemical it was. and I was wearing like flip flops and shorts and no mask or respirator and all that sort of stuff, right? And I was like, taking the course, and they're saying things like how important it is to cover yourself up, and talking about the LD50 number on chemicals, and that a lot of people think if it has a low LD50 number, and LD50 refers to the amount of time, I think if I remember correctly, the amount of time it takes for 50% of the mice that they test the chemical on to die. So people think that a low number means that it's safer, but they were explaining it doesn't mean a low number that all the mice that were exposed to the chemicals all died. It was 100% kill, but it's just a matter of, some died a slower death, right? And they're just explaining that if you get like weed chemical on the back of your hand, it takes like 5 seconds to enter your bloodstream. If you get like a mist in your eye, it's like instantly in your bloodstream, stuff like that. So I just made the connection that when I was using weed chemicals, that was the day that I got really sick and had to go to the hospital. So never touched weed chemical again. So I do anything that's not a chemical in terms of like I'll do regular fertilizer and moss control because that's just iron, and lime because that's just lime. But I won't do any herbicides because it's not worth my health for somebody's lawn. Tommy says, "Okay, have a thankful weekend. Yes, the old weed killer I used always gave me a headache and feeling a bit nauseous. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's funny because now I'll mow lawns and there'll be like these companies that come by, the big companies that just do spraying. And even if they're in the neighborhood, I can smell it in the air, and it just makes me feel gross. So don't touch any weed chemicals. If a client wants it bad enough, they can either hire somebody else to do it, or they can do it themselves. If they can find the stuff. A lot of the stuff is banned now in the city that I'm in, so they'd have to go to surrounding cities to even buy it. So yeah, and then I learned a lot of things like in that course. They were really good about talking about like dandelions, broadleaf weeds, things like that. Like you don't need weed killers for that. Like they're dandelions and broadleaf weeds only grow in compacted soil. So what's secure to that? Aerate it. So aerate regularly, and here we do it twice a year because of all the rain we get. And by doing that, over time, you get no broadleaf weeds. You get no dandelions in your lawn because you're constantly aerating it. Things like clover is another one that's like a big issue, and they're just saying, that's a sign of low nitrogen. Clover is nitrogen fixing. If you add enough nitrogen through your regular fertilizing program, then the clover doesn't take over. It has a harder time to establish because it's just not necessary in the lawn there. So just kind of, it was neat for them to be like, yeah, they're the ones testing you and giving you a license for spray chemicals, but they're also telling you how not to, alternative methods on how to do that stuff without having to resort to chemicals. So that was cool. So I just never used chemicals again. All right, guys. Well, have a fantastic weekend. Thanks again for joining in on the live stream. And Tommy says, well, everything is a chemical compound. Yeah, that's true. But it's staying away from the bad stuff. Yeah, that's the key there, right? So when I talk about chemicals, it's always that's what I'm referring to is the bad stuff. Because of course, like even fertilizer, right? Using regular fertilizer is essentially a chemical as well, right? It's a mix, getting it in those prills and stuff, but it's relatively safe, right? It's not um, as long as you're not eating it or something like that sort of thing. But it touching my skin and stuff is not going to have the same effect as like a liquid spraying of something that would get absorbed right away, um, versus like the prills touching the back of your hand as much. Yes, treat the cause instead of a quick short fix. Yeah, that's exactly what I say with a lot of clients and stuff. Is that a lot of these weed chemicals and things like that, and even like when I try to sell people on organic fertilizers, I talk about how that's what you want to do, right? You want to feed the soil with an organic fertilizer and that stuff, break that down, and in turn they poop, and then that's kind of naturally feeding the lawn and all that sort of stuff versus just putting, synthetic fertilizers on the time, which is like heroin for the lawn. Yeah, it's going to work fast, it's going to give it a quick fix, but then the lawn can also crash pretty quick as well. Biggest issue with organic stuff, though, is in my experience, it just takes longer to get to the same result if you're just starting out. But once you get the lawn kind of used to it, it's the same thing with aeration. I had a client once who was always like against aeration. Kind of made me feel like I was like a used car salesman. And then I kept telling him about the benefits of the aeration and stuff like that. And then he finally came up to me and said, "Okay, let's do it your way. Just don't go crazy with my credit card because credit card on file sort of thing." And he was a client too that would always only call me when it needed mowing. This is back in the early days when I would do that sort of stuff. So I was telling him, no, yeah, like if you want a nice lawn, and he was in a very nice neighborhood, it was like, you have to mow it every week. We have to aerate it twice a year. We have to do all that. Anyways, he let me take over and do it my way. And it was like 3 years later, I was mowing his lawn, and he tapped me on the shoulder and took my headphones off. And he's like, "Okay, now I get why we aerate every year." It was like, yeah, there you go. He says it's completely transformed ever since you took over. So I was like, there you go. It's not, I'm not selling you anything you can't verify yourself looking online. Do you have a scarcifier? I do. I do have one. I don't. It's a Bluebird. What's it called? Bluebird lawn comber. It's a very old model. I bought it used at a tool rental place for like $300. It needed some wheels and stuff like that. The bearings were gone, so replaced a bunch of parts on it, and it's been. I've used that for 20 years or so. Again, I don't do as much of that anymore. Um, that I would do in the beginning. At any rate, guys, thanks for chatting. I gotta head off to the next one, and probably gonna stop off at home first and use a washroom. So have a blessed weekend, and we'll catch you guys sometime in the next few days. Bye for now.